strap through the entire towage just because we broke both points on my Jeep. This is a rope we got directly from China, and I want to compare it to an American rope. That was super hard. Okay, so I tested a bubble rope, I tested a Yankum rope, cut them up. I tested a bunch of ropes that are made in China, that I bought some from Amazon, some direct from China. And if you just want to know what rope to buy that is going to be the most reliable, dependable rope that is probably the best for our applications, I would say Yankum. However, if you want to know about everything that went on here and why I'm saying that, and maybe a different rope is more applicable to your use, then stick around. Before I get into this, let me tell you a story that happened about 2.5 months ago in Baja. So super long story short, this Jeep put its tire over the side. His diff ended up getting hung up, and that's the only thing that kept him from rolling further into the ditch. We ended up winching him from all the available points we had, but every time we would pull, he would just keep sliding further into the ditch. We basically needed the kinetic energy to get his tire past the ditch fast and keep him on the ground. And luckily we had a kinetic rope. Based on that, if I would have a crappy or unreliable or unpredictable kinetic rope, I'd be worried in that specific scenario. I wouldn't know if that rope didn't have kinetic energy, that Jeep could be in a ditch. That's the bottom line. So that's why I do recommend Yankum. It is the expensive option, but it's the option that, from my experience and my testing at this point, I know is going to be reliable. So let's get into why. You see how soft this thing is? I mean, this thing is like ridiculously soft. The softer a rope is versus the harder it is, that's a big factor. From my experience, from all this testing, the rougher a rope is versus softness, the stronger it's going to be. So you don't want a rope that is sloppy like noodles. You want something that's going to be stiff. But the next thing is the interior of a rope. So that's another point to mention is on the outside, almost all these ropes, whether they're cheap ropes from China or the most expensive American ropes, I've noticed on the outside, they're pretty much the same thing. They are nylon 66, most likely. Sometimes you can't tell if it's white or black, but it is nylon 66. And they feel pretty much the same. They're sewed pretty much close to the same. It's what's on the inside that counts. What I noticed when I opened up a lot of these ropes is some of these are ropes that are, quote unquote Chinese. And when I say Chinese, I don't mean that I'm buying them directly from China. What I'm saying is that they're made in China. And you're gonna have companies, I'm not gonna mention names, but you guys could figure it out, that say company USA, but their stuff's still made in China. So therefore, they're a Chinese rope in my opinion. And then you have products that are made in America. I know Yankum is, I know Bubba is, I believe Factor 55 is too, and some other companies, but a lot of the stuff is made in China. So that's what I say when I say Chinese. I bought some ropes on Amazon for $110 that are Chinese ropes, and then I bought the same exact ropes in China for 25 bucks on Alibaba. Just so you know. And the difference really is what's on the inside. And what's on the inside with some of these ropes, this is black, by the way. And that's one thing. But it's also, you could feel the difference in the material. They all claim to be nylon 66. This, what I'm holding in my hands, this one I definitely bought directly from China, is not nylon 66. Where's the one that I bought here in America? Vulcan rope. This, I don't know, you tell me. I don't want to say anything, but I don't think it's the same material that's being used in a Yankum rope. And it's definitely not braided the same. This is much thicker, so I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but it is what it is. I opened up some other ropes and there's no braiding at all here, just a bunch of material with maybe 1 or 2 weaves. And I'll move this closer just so you could see. And then you open up a Bubba rope and it's different. So I don't know if you could see this very well, but that's how this looks. This is a Vulcan, by the way. This is a Bubba. You could definitely tell it's white, first of all. A. And B, versus that it's black. And B, you could see how it's much better braided. Hopefully you could see. So that makes a difference. I don't know exactly what the braiding does on the inside, I'll be honest with you. And I know it makes it stronger. I can't understand why it would make it more kinetic energy, but it definitely makes it stronger. But the point is, if this company, Bubba and Yankum, are taking the time to braid this correctly, I'm assuming there's a good reason for it. And then you have other ropes like this one that basically doesn't do any braiding at all. Almost no weaves on the inside. Very minimal. Even though it's white nylon, by the way. It's from China. This is the most expensive one from China. So that's the other thing. You don't know what you're getting on the inside. The last thing I'll talk about that matters to me and is the eyes. So this is going to be a Yankum. This is China. Vulcan. I think this is the Vulcan. Bubba. You could kind of tell by the eyes how much they care about their product. If the eye is like this, it was hung up with these type of lines. It was not hung up nicely. It was not stored properly to dry out. That's the first thing. For me, it's visual, but it matters for me. Second thing is how thick the dipping is. This is almost not dipped at all, pretty much. A lot of them aren't. Some of them are not dipped at all. They just put this stuff in here. The Bubba, the dipping and the eye, in my opinion, is okay. And the dipping is not that thick, in my opinion. Yankum is probably the second best dipping and has really nice eyes. This is the Chinese rope that I got that has a ridiculously beautiful dipping. I mean, it looks bomb. The eye looks bomb. The reason why I'm not recommending this product, even though it's a great product, is because they use nylon 6 on the outside. So then let's get into one other aspect that sometimes you can see, sometimes you can't see. When I tested all these ropes out in the field, there's only one failure point that I noticed that most likely is going to exist. It's going to be right here. So it's whenever you pull on any rope, you're going to start seeing some kind of, residue of your pull over here. This rope, called Ditch Pig or Ditch King or something, Ditch something, this was one pull that already started coming apart completely. Every other rope, you started seeing a little bit of abrasion happening here, other than this one. And that includes Yankum, just so you know, and Bubba. So with Yankum and Bubba, there's much less abrasion, and that's because I think they're dipped. We'll get into that next. But there's still a little bit of abrasion here, going on here. And you can even see like this is going in nice and thick. And because this had a couple of pulls on it, this is actually starting to get thinner because it's going into this rope, like this. So this is the issue that you really have. I think that a Yankum Bubba will withstand hundreds of ropes before this becomes an issue, hundreds of pulls before this becomes an issue. A lot of the other Chinese ones will too, but you just don't know. That's the point. Like this happened after one pull. The one other thing about this Chinese rigging company rope that I found is the way they do their eye is slightly differently than everybody else. And it's actually better than Yankum and Bubba. And you'll see that these ropes, when I pulled this rope really hard, you'll see that it doesn't have any indentations from the other one, because they actually put some thread, a little bit of thread in between the ropes before they seal everything, and that keeps them from being pulled against each other. So somebody take note when you're manufacturing this stuff. Most of the Chinese ropes that I see are not coated. Let me tell you that the Yankum is coated. I know that Factor 55 is coated. I didn't do too much research into other companies. Bubba is super coated, and we'll discuss that in a second. But is that an issue? Depends on you again. It depends on how you plan on treating these ropes. If you're gonna, first you never store them in the sun, but if you're gonna store them and when you're taking them out, you're gonna treat them really nicely. You're gonna make sure they don't hit rocks while you're doing pulls or get too much sand in them while you're doing pulls. It doesn't matter, right? But for me, I'm gonna abuse the ropes, especially when you're stuck and you actually need to pull this out. There's so much adrenaline pumping, everybody's running around. These ropes are gonna be in the sand, in the mud. They're gonna get abused. So I want it coated for that extra protection because I wanna buy a rope that'll last me for years and years and years. I don't wanna have to think, oh, I just did 5 pulls on a rope, now I gotta go buy another rope just in case. That's the mindset I'm recommending Yankum from. So this is coated solely with polyurethane or something that is made to protect it from abrasions. And I could tell you right now that works. And that's why it protects this area too more than standard. That's why I'm not worried about this area as much. If you are getting a rope and you don't plan on doing a lot of overlanding, a lot of, you know, situations where you're gonna need this rope on a possibly daily or weekly use during your trips, and you're like, okay, I'm just buying this rope to throw in the back of my car and possibly use it once in my life if I get stuck in the snow or something coming out of a parallel parking spot, then it doesn't matter which rope you get. You get the cheapest rope, even this ditch pig rope. It'll work for that 1 pull, 2 pulls. But if you want something that's gonna last, Yankum or Bubba. Maybe the other American ones too, I just haven't tested them, but I would not get the Chinese ones because of that reason. Here's the other thing that should be noted that you cannot see, unfortunately, even though I think it's based on the inside nylon and the threading. Some of these ropes pull much harder than the other one, have more kinetic energy than the other ones. I can tell you that Yankum and Bubba have their advertised kinetic energy. I can tell you that I used the cheapest Chinese rope, and that cheapest Chinese rope had better kinetic energy than a more expensive rope from China. And that's the situation. Straight up, the Vulcan had way less kinetic energy than a rope that looks and feels twice as cheap. That's the problem with me recommending any rope made in China. Unless you somebody else goes out and takes videos like I did and actually tests these things for real, you don't know by visually looking at them if it's going to function the way you expect it to. And you don't want to be hanging over a cliff and possibly throwing your Jeep over a cliff and putting all that money onto, hey, will this rope actually work or not? You want to be confident it's going to work when you need it to. That's why I do recommend Yankum. The other thing that I will say is this, that I should have said earlier. I recommend a 30 foot. And the reason why is because there's much more, from my personal experience in the testing, there's much more kinetic energy going on in a 30 foot pull. And the reason why I'm getting these specific ropes is not for easy yank or easy jerk or whatever, or, you know, pulling somebody off, you know, a parallel parking spot in the snow. I'm getting it for the situation where I am depending on that kinetic energy to save myself or my buddy's ass and not have him roll into a cliff. I want maximum kinetic energy. Therefore, I get a 30 footer and I'm gonna carry a 20 footer too. And if I get 50 foot of kinetic energy, maybe I need that 50 foot, I have no idea. You could always take a 30 foot, split it in half, get yourself 15 feet, so you have the option to be short. But I highly, highly, highly recommend a 30 foot. I forgot to plug myself. So follow me on @offcamber_ on Instagram. Like my video.
Cool. Cheap China. That was super hard. You recording it? Show that footage. How we did that. That is interesting. We put the entire strap through the entire tow hitch just because we broke both points on my Jeep. Let's see how Toyota welds hold up. Testing the next rope. This is a rope we got directly from China, and I want to compare it to an American rope. This was one of the nicer ones we got from China. Crazy backups here. It's interesting to see that everything flies that way, so don't stand there. All right, I'm not even gonna wear a helmet for this one since I got a roof on this vehicle. I'm not even gonna do you got me on video? I'm not even gonna do a second pull on this, just because look at that. This rope's done. Well, killed one rope. Recording? Mm-hmm. So this is Chinese. You see the indentation? I don't think that's a big deal. I'll just tighten everything over. Baba, see the indentation? Same thing. This is a thinner rope though, that's why it didn't indent as much. But I feel the glue, like the glue's all out. It's actually ridiculous. Like all the glue came out. See what happens. More testing, but this rope is done. I'm not even gonna test with this just because we tore it up. Ready? Cool. All right, so initial thought process here. I'll do more at home when I really get to think about it and review the video. This is the Yankum rope. It worked pretty well. It worked very well, actually. What I noticed, and I'll show you in another rope, is some of the ropes tend to rub here, and this is the failure point. That's what it looks like, and I'm assuming it's when you pull, it's somehow rubbing. So again, there's a little bit of failure, but it's really, really minimal. It's mostly paint. So this rope did work well. This rope did get stiffer. Not much stiffer, but it got stiffer after a couple of pulls. We did some really hard pulls with it. But in general, it worked well. The eyes are nice. Everything is really nice. So this is the Bubba rope. The most expensive one out of all these. It got much stiffer after the pulls. You could feel it. Again, I noticed that everybody's using, at least on the outside, white nylon. Again, same thing. Just like the Yankum, it worked well. Inside it looked nice. Everything held really well, actually, pretty well. So both of these, I'm gonna look at the video and let you know more later. But right now, initially, they both felt like they have good stretch. This is the first Chinese rope we tested, and can you give me the knife out of the pickup? You could run. This is the first Chinese rope we tested. In my opinion, like the way the thread is, it's nicer than those, just because it looks fancier. It worked just as well. And what I'm gonna do right now, out of interest, because I can't see inside because of the rubber covering, I'm gonna cut it up. Cool. So this is the rubber covering. I don't know what this yellow stuff is. What I did find interesting about this specific rope is if you look at the Bubba rope and the Yankum, same thing, you kind of feel where the inner stitching ends. So it's thin here and it gets thicker over here. So it's about, I don't know, I'd say what, 10 inches it goes in here. With this one, thin here, thick here. So it goes in a good 2 feet. I think that actually makes a big difference because there's no rub in here, actually. I'm actually very surprised. There's zero rub in here. This is interesting. I expected more rubbing. I'm gonna check the other side at this point, just to make sure there's no rubbing on the other side, but don't know if you can see in there. I'll show you later too, but there's no rub in here. Personally, up until I just cut this, I thought the point of this rubber was to cover up defects and issues. With this specific manufacturer in China, this is actually smart. The point of this rubber, they put thread here, just cheap thread, and put it in here somehow, but somehow that is preventing any rubbing. I'm actually very impressed with this rope, extremely impressed. Plus the fact that it's, I mean, you could tell it's coiled through here, which is ridiculous. I look like a crazy man holding this knife. All right, this is definitely made in China. It's Vulcan off-road. Yeah, it says made in China. How did this rope do? This rope has very little rubbing on the inside. Stayed soft. You can see the coil goes in about as much as the Bubba and the Yankum rope. The issue that I had with this rope, and the reason why I would not recommend this rope, it had almost no give. The kinetic part was lacking, so I felt the hits in the truck, which made me not happy.
A whiplash.
So that's the issue, I guess. All right, this is the cheapest Chinese rope that we have. We had two more from different manufacturers in China. We didn't bother testing because we didn't want to keep beating up the trucks. We might test them off other vehicles. However, this is the cheapest one. I mean, this rope cost us, I think, 28 bucks in China, plus shipping. I'm assuming that's not, you can't just get one-offs there for that price, but that's what the price was. And we did the hardest pulls on this rope because I really thought it was going to go, and I really wanted it to go just for a good video. So we did really hard pulls to a point where the engine said there's no oil. So I'm assuming the pull caused the engine oil to somehow move around too much. But it held. It did not break. This has the same rubber stuff, so I'm gonna cut it. But I got a feeling because this is a cheap one, it's not doing the same purpose as the other one, the other Chinese rope. Yeah, it's not. So that Chinese rope, I keep saying Chinese rope, it's screwed up or whatever. That rope, the red rope that I cut, the purpose of the rubber was to protect all that nylon that is protecting the rope. Here, it's just to make it so it looks nice instead of putting threads like Bubba does and Yankum does. So Bubba and Yankum does make it more cosmetically nicer. However, you could see here some paint came off. I could already see here some came off, but to be honest with you, it held pretty well. So this rope, what's it called? Dirt. I'll fix it in the YouTube video. It's called Dirt something. This is the cheapest rope I could find on Amazon that had good reviews. I think it was under 100 bucks. Same size as all these ropes, 20 foot. I did one pull. That pull wasn't too hard. It did break my metal hook though. And this is what happened. This whole thing came apart instantly. This started to come apart. So because of that, I didn't bother doing more pulls just because that one pull proved to me that this is crap. So honestly, I don't remember how much I paid for this. I'll put it in the video, probably under 100 bucks. But the $28 rope outperformed this tenfold because we did like 4 or 5 hard pulls on the $28 rope versus one pull on this. What really impressed me was these guys. So this one is from Bubba. It worked well. What the difference in this and the rest, these are all from China. These were all like 10 bucks, between 5 and 10 bucks in China. The only difference really here is, I don't know what Bubba does. They either burn this or shave this. They make this nicer, but that's pretty much it. All of these were used in the system the whole time. None of them failed. And that's what actually impressed me, because I know like this is a $5 piece from China and it didn't fail either. This threading came apart, but this threading is solely cosmetic, so it doesn't really matter. This held really well. You can have indentations. I personally been using a factor 55 one for a couple of years. I have indentations over here, but it still holds. This Chinese one has the same indentations, but none of the threading came apart, so it's still gonna hold. It's doing the same exact thing. This Bubba one has some indentations, not as much actually. Actually, yeah, pretty indented over here. and you could smell the rubber here. So they're using some kind of chemical material they're using here. So it really got indented here, but it's gonna hold fine. This is another one that we used. It was thicker. I think it was like $7 in China, $8. I don't know. It's twice as thick. I think it's rated to much higher. I'll put in the video. I don't even see any heavy indentations in this. So this worked flawless. And this was the one that I had as the primary point between the tree savers and my kinetic rope. So this took most of the weight, and it did exceptionally excellent. It's 10 millimeter rated to 14,000 kilograms. That's what it says. So this is the one that really impressed me. I actually wasn't too keen on this idea, just because I thought this was solely a cosmetic thing. I broke, I mean, this rope can go forever. I mean, it's indented like crazy, but none of the threads came apart. So this piece actually took a lot of the pressure later. I broke all my hooks on my Jeep, and we thought the testing was going to be done. And then my buddy's Tacoma's here, we put this through the tow hitch completely, and it was luckily long enough to fit all the way through. And I figured, you know, what's the worst that could happen? We'll break the tow hitch, right? But I really thought what's going to happen is that the metal would be rubbing on this, and this would go really fast. Because of this added layer of protection, the metal was rubbing over here, and it protected the rope completely. So this exact size with this exact configuration is genius, because that was probably the strongest and safest tow point on the vehicle. So I'm definitely going to get a couple more of these, and just to even give them out to my buddies. I think this is probably under $10-15 in China. It works perfectly, flawlessly. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to cut the ropes, but it's all white nylon. It's sewed inside. I'm gonna cut two of them. I don't want to cut the expensive rope on Yankee, because I'm definitely gonna keep. But I'm gonna cut two of the thin ones because I want to see what's inside. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it with this knife. I actually had to use a metal grinder to cut through this. So I'm gonna see if I can do this now. If not, I'll do it in my garage later. Nope. I have to Okay, I mean, you could pretty much see it. It's brighter nylon than in here. I think maybe there's a layer of paint on this one, but it's, you know, one layer of this, just like here, one layer of nylon. Yeah, same stuff, same thing. This one has a little silver tint, so I'm assuming there's a little paint on it. I don't know, maybe it's silver nylon, but same thing inside. They all look the same. I'm gonna do the Vulcan. Definitely not cutting those. I'm gonna do the Vulcan because this isn't the rope I plan on keeping for myself. I hated the stretch on it. The same stuff. Yeah, now that kind of actually makes sense. It's all the same stuff inside. I don't know why this one had less stretch, to be honest with you. Cool. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, what I kind of started noticing, I use these ropes, I should have done this before I use these ropes, but that's not the point, is these eyes. The eyes have two things. First of all, so this is the Chinese one that I like. These eyes are thick. This is like really thick, dipped, plasti dip or something. And it's nice and rounded. If you look at like the Vulcan, it's not rounded, because I'm assuming they hang it like this to dry, and it's just a very small layer of plastic dip or some kind of dip. And even if you look at the Bubba and Yankum, so the Bubba, I don't like this eye. Yankum has a nice eye, nice and sexy, rounded. But even this dip, this is better than most of the Chinese dip, other than the one that I just showed you. That one's the best, honestly. So this looks like it's kind of like double dipped. There's a thicker layer. that's kind of what I look for in these ropes, what I'm seeing as a difference. Cool.